What's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode. In this video, I'm talking to Percy Gardner. Percy is a former big league pitcher. He's also, 10 years of a professional pitcher in the minor leagues, 10 plus years, somewhere around there. I
Yeah.
had the privilege and honor of getting to know him on a personal level when he was with the Baltimore Orioles organization. I genuinely mean this when I say this, like one of the best people I came across in my baseball career from a personal side. Incredible athlete, incredible pitcher, but as far as a human being goes, top tier, A plus, 80 grade on that. So, extremely excited. We're going to go ahead and just jump right into this for those listening. So, I want to be able to talk about really the mindset and the mental game. But before we get into that, man, can you just kind of start with your journey to the big leagues? Can you walk us through the early stages of your career? And as far as like the time and dedication it took to get there, just kind of sprinkle that in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was a football player who a lot of people were telling me to play baseball, but I knew a full ride was more likely for baseball or for football. So I focused on that and it didn't work out. And I actually walked on try out to Ball State. Didn't start well, but ended up going really great and ended up getting drafted in the second round by the Philadelphia Phillies right out of Ball State, which is a MAC school. And I didn't have the pressure of being a high draft pick. I just was out there having fun. And ultimately, and when I got to the pro level, I was with the Phillies, and that's when they had Cole Hamels, Roy Halladay,
Mm-hmm.
Roy Oswalt, Cliff
Good
Lee.
God.
And then I started to add the unnecessary expectation on my shoulders. But yeah, I would say, I had 5 years. I got drafted 2010 second round with the Phillies, 77th pick. And I was released in March of 2015. Thought my career was over and was at home. Got a call from a 216 area code, which I know is Cleveland. And turned to my wife and was like, babe, what if this is the Indians? And answered the phone, and it was. And they kind of played with my mind and emotions. They were like, we're just calling to see if you were still interested in playing baseball. I'm like, duh, it's been 3 days. So 10 days went by and they finally sent me a flight itinerary to go out and kind of start over. Didn't touch a mound for a while and ended up going to high A, which, I was 26, so I was kind of upset about that. But
Been
uh,
there.
I, I wanted to play some ball. So ended up going there. And then next year started in double A after I thought I was getting released from the Indians. And then, pitched lights out that year and ended up getting called up 2016, August 31st, and made my debut with my hometown team. Grew up an hour and a half south of Cleveland, and it was great memories. I got to play for a team that went to the World Series, didn't win, but still got a ring out of it. And then eventually, I suffered some injuries, and they didn't want to pay for those injuries. So the Orioles did, and ended up with the Orioles. That's where I met Matt and grew a relationship with him. And then, yeah, and then end up retiring um, 2019 February. And yeah, it was a journey. Love it. And baseball didn't have the long pro career that I wanted, MLB career, I guess. But ended with a lot of relationships and people back home are just impressed that I got to play professional baseball. So it's afforded me some opportunities and very grateful.
Definitely, man. I mean, for those listening, just getting to go to college is an accomplishment. Then getting your name drafted, being a top 100, draft pick, a second rounder. I mean, that's an accomplishment in itself. And then anybody who gets to say that they pitched on a big league mound, no matter how long or whatever, like true accomplishment. I mean, there's plenty of guys out there like myself who are just, minor league washouts, and very honored to have gotten that opportunity to play, but it takes a lot to be able to make it to that top. What are some of the tough decisions and commitments and breakthroughs? Let me ask you this: like, what are some of the tougher things that you had to go through in order to get to that top peak of being an MLB pitcher? Are there anything that sticks out in your mind that says like, man, this was really tough, and I'm glad I got through it because it ultimately led to me, on a big league mound?
I mean, there's two things that really stick out. One was just the financial burden. Luckily, I was drafted high, but I had a family that I had to take care of, and not. I don't, when I say family, I don't just mean wife and kid. When I got drafted, I didn't have a wife or kid, but I had my mom, stepdad, sisters, siblings, and all the things that I had to take care of, and I felt responsibility to do that, and I love doing it. But it did take a hit, taking care of another family. And then I had my son in 2013 when I was in high A with the Phillies, and that changed a lot of the perspective. And having to go into the off season, getting up to work out at 6 a.m., going and work a 9 to 5 job. I worked at Finish
Wow.
Line, Best Buy, and it was fun, but at the same time, you're just like, I'm a professional baseball player. Like, what am I doing? And ultimately, knowing like this could be the life if I don't really, focus on what I need to do on the mound for the family and for me just to accomplish my goals. And that was the burden, and eventually, it wasn't a burden. But I will say, it did turn into kind of a crutch and something that I really focused on too much. A lot of the things that I couldn't control is what I focused on. And at the end of the day, when I pitched my best and when I got to the big leagues is when I was just focused one pitch at a time and just chucking the thing and not worrying about who's in the stands or, contracts or anything like that. Just throwing the ball, and that's when I was at my best. And then I would say number two is just the approach. I never really struggled in sports, and but I never really put unnecessary pressure on myself. Being from a small town, I graduated with like 200 people,
Mhm.
and it was good that I was just playing quarterback at the high school level, and they never really paid attention to baseball. People, you got in free, and still no one came. Um, and even at the college level, I wasn't expected to do what I did, and it kind of happened real fast. But when I got to the pro level and I was, rubbing shoulders with Hall of Famers, I instantly kind of changed my mindset, and it was for the worse. I didn't look at it as, hey, this is a job. Let me, perfect my craft, let me work every day, and let my preparation, turn into confidence. I would prepare, but there were people that was preparing better than me. And ultimately there were some failures, and I let the failures kind of take control of my mind, and I wasn't able to just be free and easy and compete. I was kind of competing with myself and the hitter, which is making it hard. It's like tying an arm behind your back. But at the end of the day, the struggles financially and the struggles mentally with confidence and knowing that, hey, I got drafted for a reason. I kind of let things, get to my head, and it had an effect on my pitching performance. And I was aware of it. I could see this sounds terrible. I could see less talented pitchers just being free and easy out there and just throwing the ball, throwing 88, and I'm throwing 99, and I just have no confidence, and it just didn't make sense to me. Um but it just, the path I took, it ended up working out for me and, build my confidence. But then again, right when I got back to the big leagues, then I put an unnecessary expectation on myself. So, um, it's a balance of preparation and confidence. And I let those two struggles kind of affect my career early on, which I don't regret because it ended up turning me
Yeah.
to who I am today. But it would have been nicer to just have the confidence I needed to have the fast track to the MLB. But, everybody has their journey.
Well, let me ask you this, because I think a lot of us, I think everybody deals with confidence until you get to a point where you've proven it over and over and over again that you feel confident enough to be confident. That's a weird way of thinking about it, but that's how my mind works on that. And so what do you feel like was holding you back from being the confident person that you were when you were at Ball State on the mound, getting drafted in the second round compared to, the confident that you felt maybe at the peak of your career, which is weird to say. Like at the peak of your career, you felt the least, I guess, sure about your ability. So, like, where in your mind do you feel like you had success and why? And then, like, where do you feel like along the way it kind of dwindled?
I would say, well, I had success, and this doesn't work for everyone, but the thing that the Indians did is they kind of got me obsessed with velocity. They kind of pinned me against one of their hard throwers that were a young Dominican who was throwing really hard, and they kind
Always
of made
get
it a
Dominicans.
competition. Yeah,
It's always one of those.
always though, but they kind of always had a radar gun behind me, a little pocket radar, and just they wanted to instill the intent to be aggressive and just throw the ball hard, and then have the confidence that everything else will fall into place when you repeat and you repeat and you repeat. Because I was someone who, hey, if I went down 2-0, then we're taking about 6, 7, 8 mile an hour off and try to throw this thing over the plate, which would still result in the same thing as a base on balls. But I would say that led to my success of them just saying, hey, be an athlete, just throw the ball, which is sometimes it would be irritating to hear from someone who wasn't able to do what you were able to do. But and I would say, you know, I do love the Indians for what their philosophy was, and they kind of made me buy in. They're like, look, we're going to sign you as a free agent, but you're going to have to do exactly what we say. And sometimes it was difficult, but the end result was, me making my debut in the big leagues and, being someone who always envied pitchers who were just, not slaves to their thoughts and were just competing. It felt great to be able to do that. 2016, I just felt loose. I felt like at times the best pitcher in the world. I mean, I went, I don't know, 60 innings with like a .5 ERA, and I was having 4 pitch innings, 6 pitch innings, and I just was like, wow, this is easy. Just throw strikes, and they'll get themselves out. It was crazy. And I guess to tie on to that, one of the pivotal things in my career was one of the pitching coaches with the Indians at the time, Guardians now. They brought me out to batting practice, and they said, hey, we feel like you give hitters too much credit. Let's watch how many hits they get in batting practice when it's being fed in there perfectly. And that kind of changed my whole perspective. We're seeing maybe 2 out of 9 for base hits. One of them was a home run. Some were fouled. They fouled him back off the turtle. And I'm just like, huh. And it just kind of clicked. But I would say when, my struggles were when I tried to, like I said earlier, control things that I couldn't and focused on things like, stats and, not necessarily my intent and how hard I was throwing the ball, but just things that um, maybe you would think about when you're playing with a character in MLB The Show. I was thinking about those things in real life, like, oh, I got to get these next 3 and I got to strike one dude out so I can have this amount of strikeouts. And we all know that's not how you're going to play the game. That's
Anytime
never
you
going to.
start playing that game, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Man, if I
Yeah.
get this guy out, what's the calculation? My ERA drops by
Yeah.
this amount. Like you're in for a whirlwind of trouble at that point.
Yeah, yep. Or the GM's going to come to this game and I want to get moved up because so and so got moved up and I was a higher draft pick than them. So that means I should be able to, and then you start playing general manager and the next thing you know, you've had 5 starts and you didn't get out of the second inning and you're just like, what is happening?
Yeah. Now I
uh,
hope the GM doesn't call me because that
yeah,
means
exactly. Exactly. But it's a game. We have to remember that, hey, at once upon a time, I wasn't caring about, I was just playing catch with my friends and trying to hit the ball far and trying to throw the ball hard.
Definitely, definitely. I think a lot of the guys who are going to listen to this are in high school. I
Okay.
think a good amount of them are going to be in college as well. Going through your high school and looking back on that, what were some things that kept you going in the right direction? Obviously, playing multiple sports, you're tired. Baseball season's long. It can get boring. But what keeps you going? What is something that just ultimately was pushing you forward?
I would say, being from a school who expects, wins and a successful program, whether it was football, basketball, or baseball, um, kind of just defeat, losing to teams locally and especially in high school. It really kind of, especially our rival. We had won so many games back to back to back against our rival, and then I was the class that lost. I was just like, oh my gosh. And it kind of focused, and I also had some good teammates who I grew up with, and I'm not sure how the landscape is nowadays, but I will say, having a group of friends that you've played with, for a long time and growing that bond and having that trust and also having that responsibility and accountability. Like I got to do my best and I got to prepare and be ready, not just, hey, I know I want to play, college ball and get a free education and all the perks that come with that. But number one, high school memories, not everybody gets to play in college. And coming from a small town, I didn't think it was possible for me to play professional. I thought, hey, my ceiling is probably if I can get to Division I sports, I will be happy. And watching a lot of athletes that I looked up to at the college level, it just inspired me to want to, be someone who was able to achieve great things. And even when it was tough, I didn't want to get up and work out at 6 a.m. And that we kind of started that my freshman year. So freshman year on from high school, every morning it was like a class that we had to attend. So I was waking up and working out, and once you master the monotonous tasks, it you just kind of you get into a rhythm, and it's no longer like, oh, I gotta lift tomorrow. It's just like, hey, I get to. You start to see these teams that don't have the same program as you. They don't have a weight room, and you kind of took it for granted. And you see these teams that, or you come up against a guy who's maybe not as talented as you, doesn't have the resources, but you see the hunger, and you're like, dang, what am I doing? And you kind of refocus, like, all right, I gotta get my stuff together. I just take inspiration from a lot of different people. So I would say in high school it was tough. Video games weren't as predominant as they are now. We didn't have a lot of distractions, but my distraction were girls. My wife, who I'm with now, thankfully, um,
Lady.
she was a big distraction for me in high school. I'm not gonna lie. I showed up late to a couple football practices. But it was that accountability again. My friends were like, dude, what the hell are you doing, bro? Like, we got to get this together. So
Yeah,
there was a lot of different things. But just being able to realize, like, okay, this is where I'm trying to go, and then think about the ways that'll get you there. Because you can't just say, all right, this is my goal, and then just we'll see what happens. You kind of get your path there. Google Maps doesn't just tell you this is the destination. It gives you the turns and the exits you got to take to get there. So
definitely. And you mentioned motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Obviously, you try to grasp from it anything that you can to like keep you going, but it's ultimately consistency that's going to win the battle. Were you somebody that was always consistent with your work ethic, or if not, how did you instill that in yourself? Because I think that's probably the biggest thing that any human in the world has trouble doing. You can be inconsistent in some things in your life and maybe not consistent in other things. And I think a lot of us humans are just trying to be as consistent as possible across all landscapes of our life, whether it's consistently doing our homework and turning it on time. For me, whether it's consistently still going to the gym and showing up for myself, right? Consistently eating well. For these guys, it's consistently going to the gym, consistently doing their bands. Like all of these things have to be consistently done. So how do you instill that in yourself at such a young age?
For me I would love to sit here and tell you that I had the mama mentality and then I
Yeah.
was just so hungry every morning. I was getting up at 4 a.m., you know what I'm saying? But I was definitely not one of those. I wouldn't say I was lazy, but I was not one of those crazy driven people. When you look at the comparison between motivated and driven, I would say, people like Kobe or whatever, they're driven. It's not something that's wavering. That's who they are. And I always envied that. But for me, the thing that kept me going was, I alluded to it earlier, was just, the competition in the area, people that I was, around were always kind of pushing me, whether that it wasn't always teammates, it was teachers, coaches. I was blessed to have a lot of great coaches, no matter what sport I was playing, who always challenged me and knew, because you don't always see your talent. You don't know, what you have in yourself, especially me. Some people may understand like, hey, I'm talented. I gotta work at this and because I got a future. But I would say most people don't quite understand what they have and what they can achieve. And you need that kind of, push and from different directions, whether it's your parents, coaches, teachers, friends, parents. I had a lot of people telling me I was great. I also had people like my father telling me that I was, I needed to get it together. So,
You
but
always need
ultimately,
somebody like that.
yeah. You definitely do. My wife is that now. She would be like, "Well, what are you doing? We need to get this game going. You got to see your son, and you're out here walking people." So, but
Dang.
but I would say, yeah, she's savage. But at the end of the day, uh, you have to understand that if this is something I really want to do, which as a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, I knew this is what I wanted to do. And I was like, I want to be a collegiate athlete at the Division I level. So I was, looking at film of other players. We didn't have YouTube or anything like that. But we had anytime I could watch film of someone, we had the VHS back then. I'm not that old, but I'm kind of old. Um, I would always look for inspiration. Since I wasn't driven just innately, I would try to look at someone, whether it was Michael Jordan or Deion Sanders or Ken Griffey Jr., no matter what it was, I would look for like, okay, if I'm feeling like, not in the mood, I want to go through the motions, you got to kind of know yourself. Like, all right, I'm in one of those moods. I got to pick myself up. So, I put a VHS in of,
Hmm.
Reggie Bush or something that would at the moment where I'm like, all right, let me watch some Reggie Bush tape or let me watch some Randy Johnson tape. Pedro Martinez was my favorite.
So
But I saved him for the real hard days.
the real dark places. You're like, oh, dude, I can't even get out of bed. It's dark. Let me put Pedro
Yes.
on. Pedro got me.
Yeah, so let's go to Pedro. So, and later on, and at the pro level, I would still go through it, and it would be Jose Fernandez. That was
I
my
still do
go-to. Loved Jose Fernandez. Rest in peace, dude. I would just watch him, and I'm like, look how hard he throws his fastball. Look how hard he throws his breaking ball. Like, get after it. And I would always have a really good, start whenever I'd watch some Jose film.
Definitely, man. I still go through that now. Anytime I feel like I'm in a place where mentally I'm not clear, I love to go to the Last Dance. Last Dance, I'll watch
Ooh,
from start to finish just to get myself back in that mentality. Kobe Bryant's got some documentaries out there. Well, I'll watch those all the way through. I'll turn around and watch, the captain with Derek Jeter from start to finish again. Like I'm constant right now. I'm watching the starting five on
nice.
Netflix about the basketball players and their lifestyle. LeBron James and just looking at how he goes about his work ethic and just seeing these guys do it over a long period of time, motivates me. And then you hear them talk about how sometimes they're not up for it and they're battling the same things you're battling. You're like, all right, this is okay. Like it's okay that I feel this way. However, what's not okay is to put it on the back burner and just like let it keep cooking and cooking and cooking, and then before you know it, it blows up in your face. Like you do have to find a
Yeah,
way out, like you say. So yeah, no, that's great that you're able to share that. I kind of want to move and transition into the mental side of the game.
yeah,
Obviously, baseball is super mental over physical. I think that it's kind of switched in how we practice, right? I think we practice 90% physical, maybe 10% mental. I think the game's starting to shift a little bit and people are starting to focus more on the mental game. But at what point did you realize, like, wow, there's a real mental aspect to this game that needs my attention in order to have success at a high level?
I would say literally my first start. And as a Williamsport cross cutter in short season single A ball, my first start, I'd never really failed on the baseball field. I intimidated most people, being a big black kid, they're just like scared, and then they see me throw into the backstop and then they're really scared. Um, and that was not the case when I was playing Jamestown, the Marlins short season team, and I didn't get out of the first inning and it was a rude awakening. And then I got hurt, and when you're hurt and you're just watching people perform, you kind of get, your confidence level gets kind of low. But yeah, I would say that first outing, I was like, okay, this ain't gonna be no walk in the park. I really need to lock this in. And I know parts of baseball for me have been simple, just, throw hard and eventually, get somebody out, no matter how many walks I have. Um, but at that point, it really clicked for me like, okay, this isn't going to be, what I anticipated. But that was also a negative though, because then I started to think like, oh my, I wasn't looking at these kids as like, hey, they were just in college. I was just dominating these same players like a month
Mhm.
earlier. I was looking at this is the pro level now. Um, but being realistic about certain situations, I was that was not what I was strong at. I was definitely, looking at giving people too much credit and looking at certain things a different way and not realizing that, hey, I was just drafted in the second round. Like,
Yeah.
Like I'm good too. But uh but yeah, that was the moment. It was immediate. It was immediate.
And what were some of the things that you were, I guess, leaning on or trying to do to keep your mental game sharp, or if you didn't have one, it sounds like you didn't have like too much of a mental game when you got into pro baseball. Like, what did you start to do to maybe try to sharpen that skill for yourself?
Well, I will say, even though the marriage between me and the Phillies weren't great, they made an effort. So 2010, I was drafted. First year didn't go well. Internally, I knew that I wasn't right. Like I wasn't confident, but I wasn't I wasn't wild at that point. I just wasn't consistent and I didn't trust it. I was trying to nibble on the corners and stuff like that. And we had an actual kid who was from Baylor who was drafted, I think top 10 with the Phillies. And he actually had, full on yips. Like he was throwing it outside the turtle in live BP. And I was just like, whoa. So that was kind of bad to see because in my mind, I was like, well, I'm fine. I'm not doing that. you
Yeah.
know so I'm good. But at the same time, for me, it was the same thing. It was just not as extreme. I wasn't trusting. I was choking. I was cutting myself off a couple times when I'd throw a couple balls. Then I didn't realize that, hey, adjustments are so small. I thought I had to make this huge change in my delivery to throw a strike. Um and and, and boy, I was wrong. But the Phillies, give them credit, they had a guy, Jack Curtis. They tried slight approach. They weren't very like, hey, you got to do this. They were like, they gave me a book, The Mental ABCs of Baseball.
AJ
Um, yeah,
Dorfman.
yep, Dorfman. And, I didn't really take
Didn't
to
take
it
it
like I
seriously.
should.
Why would you?
Nah, I was
Bro,
just
second
like,
round, bro. Y'all just gave me all this money. You want me to
yeah.
win?
I'm like, I'm reading a book. Come on, bro. I got video games to play. And and so I didn't really take it serious. Like I said, I saw, the kid from Baylor just like, what is going on? So I was like, oh no, I'm good. I'm good. I'll figure it out. And then I would say a year and a half after that, so I was injured. So a year and a half after that, Jack Curtis came out at me again. He's Dr. Jack Curtis, I should say. And I went out and visited him in the off season, him and his wife. And that's when I was like, okay, this is a new focus for me. This is something real. Not many teams are on the bandwagon yet, but this is something, and I'm going all in. I'm gonna fly out to Wisconsin, Lacrosse, Wisconsin, meet with
Been
some
there.
random white people
I've
and
been
hopefully
there.
they fix me. And yeah, that moment, 2012, I would say, is when I really understood, like, okay, mental game is very important. But it was foreshadowed earlier. So when I was playing football at Ball State, my quarterback coach was Tom Brady's quarterback coach when he was at Michigan. And when you go into the quarterback room, above the doorway, it said mental is the physical is 4-1. So this was football, and he was saying mental is 4 times important as the physical realm in football. And I was like, this dude's crazy. But then when I got to the pro ball, I was like, okay. Obviously I've got all the physical ability in the world, but if the mental game is off, we see the results. It's no bueno. So that's when I was like, I got to take this serious. And the Phillies, they tried, but we didn't know, they didn't know kind of how to work this thing. But if you don't mind, I'll tell you a quick story. The thing that kind of
Of course, man.
changed, my whole outlook. So I want to say it was either at the end of 2012. I think it was the end of 2012. The Phillies signed Jamie Moyer. And if anybody, I don't know, the audience here, how young they are, but Jamie Moyer literally recorded he's the oldest pitcher to record a win and get an RBI or something like that. So he was old as dirt. Um, but he was like, "Hey, you want to play catch?" And at this time, I was like totally lost. Like, I don't want to play catch with this dude because I'm gonna
Yeah.
be humiliated. I'm gonna throw it everywhere, and he's gonna be like, "What the hell is this? Are you a pro athlete or what?"
I'm not
And
laughing at you, bro. I just can't wait till we talk further. But I've been in the same situation.
and I'm like, "No, I don't want to play catch with Jamie Moyers, dude." So he said, "Who cares, dude? Let's just do this." So luckily, it was just me and him and a couple of trainers. And I'm throwing all over the place, and he's like, and he's going to get the ball, and I'm like, bro, let me go get that.
You feel that? You're like, bro, I'll do it, dude. I'll do it. I'll go get it,
He's
man. I
like,
need to get my
shut up,
conditioning
dude.
in anyways.
Yeah, he's like, shut up, man. I'm getting the ball. It's no big deal. And no, we just literally played a game. He's like, look, whoever loses, is gonna pay for dinner. And he was like, just move it around, just move around spots. And when I play catch, I'm usually, talking about girls, whatever, not really focusing, just throwing the ball. And once I started really focusing in and thinking about like every throw is a pitch, obviously I'm not on a mound, but I'm going through my mechanics. I would never do that. Usually, I would just kind of step and throw and just go through the motions. But he kind of changed how I looked at everything. And he put me in his book and he kind of made fun of me a little bit in his book. But uh
What book is
he's
that?
um I forget
I'll
what
look.
it's actually called. I forget what it's called, but it's by him. So if you I'm sure I think he's only written one book. So
Sure.
you'll be able to find it, and you'll be able to find me in there too, because he's like he starts it by building me up. This 6'3", 230-pound athlete who was a college quarterback, blah blah blah, and he couldn't even hit my chest.
That's how the
So
media does it, bro. They build you up just to tear you down, bro. You're just a story, Jamie Moyer. He's like, you know what? I need a good chapter for this book I'm gonna write. Like, let me play catch with this kid because I know he's gonna provide some entertainment. So I'm gonna write it.
that's literally how it happened, but it changed my whole outlook on catch. And ever since then, my catch game improved. I started throwing, more strikes. I started being a little bit more confident. I even went up the next year. I made a start in AAA, went 5 2/3, and I was just like, okay, I think I kind of got this thing. But then there was a moment, the confidence wasn't, on a level to where if I had one setback, then I'm like, oh crap, it's happening again.
Yeah,
So that was kind of the struggle I had. But that turning point, for me, and that's kind of now what I preach is like when you're playing catch, like, and you're a pitcher, like don't be looking at Lindor and Jose Ramirez and how they throw. You got to look and go through your mechanics because it's up to you to be able to repeat that over and over and over again. So, yeah, that was the big turning point, and realizing like, hey, mental game is what it's all about. But I still never developed anything that I could kind of fall back on. And to be honest, the only thing that really happened, so I got drafted in 2010. 2016 was the year where I was just like, well, my career might be over. Let me just go out there and throw the ball as hard as I could.
yeah.
And, I saw 99 on the scoreboard once and I was like, is that broken? I was like, oh, is that real? And the track man, the video guy was like, yeah, you threw it 98.7 or something like that. And I was like, whoa. And then that's when I just stopped worrying about, hey, where's the ball going? I'm just going to throw to the halves and throw the shit out of the ball and see see what happens. And
That's it, man. I
it
mean,
took
carefree
off.
baseball, dude. It's like a wild concept because we implement into, the baseball community, into the kids that like, focus, pay attention, be attentive in what's going on. And then like on the other side of it, every great baseball player that you talk to talks about being in like this flow state where you just like don't care and like the don't give a shit type of mentality. And it's just like how, it's a balancing beam in between those things because like you can't care. At the
Yep.
end of the day, like I wish I would have thought about this more when I was playing. Like at the end of the day, like we are all here for a short, finite amount of time. And like while I'm here, I'm just privileged and honored to be able to play the game of baseball. Like there's people who literally come out the womb who will never have an athletic, you know, ounce of fiber in their body. There's people who come out and just like mentally aren't there and will never get to play the game of baseball. And like I get to not only play baseball, but love the game that I play. Like some people love baseball. You'll talk to kids all over the place. They love baseball. And you look at them and you're just like, no, there's just no chance. And you feel bad,
Yeah.
but like they'll never get to experience that. Whereas like guys like us and everybody probably listening to this call or on this is somebody who's got the athletic ability and the love for the game. It's just like that's all that really matters at the end of the day. Like just play, have as much fun as possible, work as hard as you can, and like let the cards fall where they fall. You can't really control anything outside of that because again, it is a dark path when you start focusing. When I'll I'm going to ask about that. If you don't mind saying, like I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
how much you talk about it, but we share that in common with having faced the yips and having gone through that. That's a oh big, like, don't say that to pitchers, but really, like, what was that for you, and like how did it impact your life, and how did it help you grow as a baseball player, and then also how did it grow as a person? Like, what did you really experience going through that?
Um, I'm gonna start by saying I felt like at first I felt like, an imposter. Well, number one, I had faced a lot of adversity in my life. And, both my parents passed before they were age 50. There was a lot of, tragedy and a lot of stuff I went through that I'm not going to get into. Um, and I was like not phased by that. But as soon as I threw a baseball out of the strike zone, it was like my world was coming to an end. And, I didn't want to go in the subway because I thought the lady, knew my performance from the previous day. I'm like, bro, I can't even go in here and eat, man. She gonna be like, bro, um, but I would say, as difficult as it was, I understood like, okay, these are certain things that affect me. So the first thing I had to understand was like, okay, as much as I want to just say, hey, quit being a punk, just go out there and do it. I've tried that so many times, didn't work.
Yeah.
Um, it drove me nuts that I couldn't overcome this like on my own by just pushing through it and just going, you know what, let's just go out. This next outing is gonna be different. This next outing is gonna be different. And I wasn't doing anything different.
No.
so so that's the
You try
definition
to
of
lie to yourself,
insanity.
like, maybe if I forget about that I had the yips, like, maybe I'll actually forget I had the yips. Oh, on this throw, I figured it out.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, the thing I had to understand was like, hey, there's a process to this. It's not gonna happen overnight. And I have to seek out certain things, and talk to other people that maybe struggled with it. And but at the end of the day, the only thing that really kind of changed the whole like outlook for me was, because I tried saying, well, baseball is just supposed to be fun. I shouldn't be acting this crazy just because I'm struggling to throw a ball. I tried a lot of different things, but and I even looked at Charles Barkley when he was having the yips playing golf,
Yeah.
and and he was getting hypnotized and stuff. I was like, maybe I need to get hypnotized. But
Insurance cover that?
huh?
Like,
Oh
insurance
yeah,
cover.
yeah. Well, the Indians actually did send me to a holistic doctor. Um, but I don't know. I wasn't down with it. It was different. I thought they was just gonna hypnotize me, but she was doing some different stuff. Um, but no, at the end of the day, it was pretty simple. Like when I felt like, hey, my back is against the wall, and this may not work with it for everyone, but for me, spring training 2016, um, in spring training with the Indians, I'm playing, it's the end of spring training, and I'm feeling like I'm getting released because my last two outings in warm-ups, the thing that really set me off was having to warm up to go into a game where you're not in a bullpen, where you're not enclosed, you're just on the field.
Bro,
That
why are
drove
you
me
speaking
that
this into
drove
existence?
me
Okay.
nuts.
This
And as
is
soon as I get to the field, I'm like, oh, dude. I was like, this is gonna be rough. I'm supposed to pitch today. And my last outing was it was one of the worst. And I'm assuming, I'm getting cut. And I go to look at this with the roster, and I'm on the double A roster. And I'm just like, wow, okay. I was like, and from that moment, I knew my back was against the wall. This is like my last hurrah. I got to do this. There's going to be people from my hometown at the game because Akron is 40 minutes from my hometown. And it was just something in me like, look, we got to change something. And fortunately, the pitching coach there was Tony Arnold, who had been like, I think he still holds a record for like most strikeouts in a game, in a high school game in the state of Texas. And he's just a different human, man. And he noticed where I was at mentally, and he was able to, just build me up as much as he could. He wasn't like, hey, you got the yips. He was just trying to, understand how my mind worked. And you could just tell. At the time I didn't know. But you can tell he was just like, hey, and he would throw with me, and he was sensitive to the whole thing because he's been around baseball forever, so he's probably seen this time after time after time. And he was able to kind of get me out of the mode of, thinking about location. He knew how important throwing strikes was, but he was like, just throw to contact. Your pitch is nasty, because the Phillies were telling me, hey, don't throw a sinker. We need you to throw a four seam. You'll be able to control it better, blah, blah, blah. He was just like, look, your sinker is amazing. He goes, if you go out there this first outing, you throw that sinker down the middle, it's not going to end up down the middle. So just throw it down the middle, and guaranteed you're going to have sub 10 pitch innings. Just watch. And that's literally what happened. First outing, I just was like, look, I'm going to throw this down the middle and let the ball work. And next thing you know, inning after inning, outing after outing, I'm not because for me, I was always trying to strike people out,
Yeah.
even before I had strikes on the guy. And then the next thing you know, when I was trying to throw to see if like, hey, let's see if you can hit this, I was in 0-2, 1-2 counts. And then I'm like, oh, now I can think about the strikeout. And once I understood, like, hey, hitting's hard. I have talent. Just let it work. Um, Things kind of changed for me. And there was still that thin line of, hey, um, at any moment I could slip back into the thoughts that I had before. And it happened. There were some times, but I had support where people understood, and I would go out and throw with just one Tony Arnold and one of my, pitchers who kind of understood the situation. And and they were just so cool about it. Even when I got to the big leagues, Brian Shaw, Cody Allen, a lot of those dudes, they, because I was throwing with Andrew Miller first, and then I was like, all right,
Mhm.
dude, I got to get a different partner because this is not. I'm throwing one of the best relievers in the game, and I'm gonna freaking not hit his ankle, and he's not gonna be able to play. Um, but yeah, I would say ultimately, I just had support, and I had people that I kind of understood the situation, and I was able to flourish and kind of understand like, hey, I have strengths here. Let me rely on the strengths and don't focus on, the weakness, so to speak. And once I was able to do that and kind of start the snowball, because we all know the snowball can happen the other way. But once I started to have the snowball go, and it was just going out there and getting out after out after out, it kind of relaxed me, and then the confidence grew from there. Even when I'd have some outings where, I might throw a pitch and it was, it looked like an intentional walk pitch. I was able to tell myself, that's not me. Let's focus back up. Let's do what we've been doing and get back after it. Without Tony Arnold and, some good teammates, which sucks I'm saying that because not everybody's guaranteed to have, a coach who is understanding and teammates that are understanding. But I would say, man, you really got to find a throw partner that doesn't mind, and you have to throw the ball. I was not lobbing the ball, didn't work for me. I had to throw the ball, and my throwing partner had to, he had to
Work.
sack up. Yeah.
That'll work. Shout out Matt
It,
Hammonds if you listen to this. This is my
Bad
right.
heavens. But
Hammonds.
that was the recipe for me was support from teammates, coaches, and understanding, okay, I have to change something. So I would change something. And I wouldn't just say, oh, one time didn't work. I would devote time to that. And I figured out like, hey, when I play catch, I got to be aggressive. None of this, dilly-dally stuff around. And that ended up working for me.
Yeah, gonna miss hard. No, man, great stuff, man. We got 10 minutes here, and I always like to open it up to some live questions here for some of the guys on here. If anybody out there, you don't have to put it in the chat. We got a little bit more of an intimate group here tonight, but any questions y'all want to know, man, from high school to college to the minor leagues to playing on a big league mound, like this is y'all's time to ask questions. This is why we put this group together to be able to provide resources like a Percy Gardner to come in here and give his wisdom. So fire away when everybody's ready. Not all at once though.
I was gonna say I would say I do if anyone's interested, I do have a good story about college and the draft and how that all worked. But if there's something else, just go ahead, fire away. Don't be shy.
Somebody's gotta have something here. A single question, fellas? Nothing? You guys got baseball figured out?
I'm an open book.
How long did it take you to get over the yips?
I would say, okay, I don't know how you guys I don't know how you guys are with your faith journey or whatever. I'm a Christian. I would say, what I would tell someone who is new to faith is all the things that you dealt with, the sins that you kind of gravitate towards, when you get saved, they don't just go away. Like you still have to battle with that every day. So this is probably not what you want to hear, but I pretty much battled them until I was done with baseball. Even after baseball, when I was giving pitching lessons, I'm throwing with an 8-year-old, so I can't let it eat at this 8-year-old. I have to, I have to, throw and kind of understand like, all right, this is what we're gonna have to do. But technically, I would say I did kind of get over him. And it happened after baseball though. That's the funny part. I would say throwing BP and a college hitter wanted me to throw to him and give him hitting lessons for some reason. But just in those moments where I'm throwing outside of, once I'm retired, uh, that's kind of when I got over it. And it's because I wasn't putting the weight of the world on my shoulders, you know. Hopefully you guys will be able to do that in your careers now, understanding that if you overthrow your partner or you don't make a perfect throw in the game or hit the bull or whatever, it's not a big deal. I one of the books I read was called The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up. You can
Mhm.
finish it. I read that book and trying to, because I'm someone who cares, that's the reason I'm like a politician now. So I work at a nonprofit, but I'm also on city council and people are trying to get me to run for mayor. But I didn't run for mayor because I care what people think too much and I like people to like me. So that was one of my things is I always cared about the surroundings around me. Like, and once you understand that, look, for me, you have to understand that you have to get over that. You know, we're playing baseball here, no one's perfect. And I would say the sooner you can get over that feeling of being embarrassed if you make a bad throw, then your bad throws will go down. The number will go down. It for sure will. It did for me. And
It's
then when you
also
did throw 1-1, you would just, you would have all that data that you just had for 6 weeks or whatever of playing good catch. And you can go back to that. Hopefully I answer. I feel like I always go off on these tangents.
no, good man. No, that's a good answer. That's a good answer there. What else? What else we got out there, fellas?
I'll also say long tossing is very important. When I signed with the Indians, that's the only thing I did the first like 2 months. I didn't touch a mound. I would just play catch and long toss and throw the absolute dog shit out of the ball. And that's kind of what, kind of started my progress towards understanding, how to defeat um this wonderful thing called yips.
Yeah. I started with weighted balls into a wall that was 2 feet away so that I couldn't overthrow it. And
Yeah, I
then
did that too. I
my
guess I
catch
forgot about that.
and then my catch play started about 120, 130. Like
Really?
my partner needed to be ready to throw at 120 when I got out there because we ain't doing the short catch play. Like I'm letting it eat. I'm letting it eat. So
No, I got you. I will say that was a big thing too, because that was part of the program that the Indians said, hey, you have to buy in. And I did weighted ball with a cement wall, with the Indians program, and that had a lot to do with it as well. But that was all part of them having like pocket radars behind me and just being obsessed with the intent to throw hard and not worry about, and I know that's not going to work for everyone, but for most people that have the yips are probably always concerned about location and where it's going to go. And if you can get over that and just have the intent to throw the ball with aggression, I think that can start the path of
definitely.
getting over yips.
Um, question anybody? If not, I got a question that I think everybody will be interested in.
Okay.
Nope. Right now, I think Trevor Bauer is more relevant than he's ever been in baseball. What was it like being in the same organization, seeing what he was doing on a regular basis? I think has, you know, opened up a lot of eyes for how people are going about their training. Obviously, the Indians being huge on long toss, him long tossing 400 plus feet like before starts. Like, what was that like to be a part of or to see kind of firsthand?
Well, he was my locker mate,
There you
and
go.
he is different in the fact that he doesn't care what you think of him. He's gonna be honest with you, and he's also gonna do, what he thinks is right. And he has some odd stuff that he did. Um, like he'd be in the batting cage doing like shortstop jump throws with his curveball, and we're like, what is happening right now? Um, but at the end of the day, like interacting before obviously all the circus that happened later, he had that before he came to the Indians, he had that persona as being someone that didn't follow the unwritten rules of baseball. So he was different, and we don't like him was the thing coming to the Indians. But once I got up there in 2016 and we're fighting for playoff spots, and you know no one denied his ability, and no one denied that he worked hard, and he was pretty much self-made, if we're going to be honest. Um, but I think there was a respect that we had for him. Obviously, we were upset that he was messing with drones and cutting his finger.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Heard about that
at
story.
at the end of the day, he was someone that was dedicated to baseball, and we respected the hell out of him. And I think he still is. He's obsessed with baseball, and he always wants to, figure out how to be better, no matter what it is. And he's just that type of human that, sometimes he's one of those I envy. Like, he's super dedicated, and I wish I could be like that at times.
And just don't care. That's
Yeah.
that's a special person, man. When you get somebody who's talented like that, that truly like when you look into their eyes or you watch them play and you're like, this dude don't care at all. That's a dangerous person to be going toe to toe against.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever tell somebody what I'm about to throw in like a real game.
I mean, geez, that's just the ultimate just disrespect. Just like here it is, and you suck. Go sit
Yeah,
down.
yeah,
Go sit
and he's
down.
just confident in his abilities.
Yeah.
But he can be confident because he prepared. I always thought success breeds confidence, but what I learned from Roy Halladay is his goal was to prepare better than anybody else in the world was. And that's what he said. I know I've done everything possible to prepare. So that's where my confidence stemmed from. And that kind of changed my whole mindset on confidence as well. So
Definitely, definitely. Well, guys, I'm gonna open it up one more time before I end this. Again, questions out there. You got somebody who's spent years and years playing the game that y'all are trying to get to the top level on, been around Hall of Famers, like anything's on the table, fellas.
and even if you think about something later too, um,
Yeah, we'll
you
put it
can
in.
connect it all. Also, if you guys are on Discord, I have like a little Discord community where we got pictures from all over, and they ask me everything under the sun, and
Mhm.
I try to answer the best. I'm not one of those who's gonna ignore or whatever. But if you're a Discord user and you feel like just having a community talking about baseball is something you want to do, then you go ahead and join. It's free and easy. You don't have to be super talkative because I can see that you guys aren't. No.
Oh man, I'll get on them. I tell them all the time, hey, bring questions, man. I think, hey, I love you all guys when I say this, but I think they're just still young and like they might be a little, a little scared
Yeah,
to ask a question
for
to
sure.
do something like that. But yeah, no, appreciate it, man. You provided a ton of value here today. I'm sure that they'll, bug me about some extra questions and I'll throw them your way. But can't speak highly enough of you for coming on here and just being the person that you are. So the information that you provided, somebody's going to take something from it. It's going to help
Hopefully, yeah.
impact their baseball lives, and then they're going to share that information. And again, we're just starting this trickle effect of knowledge being passed down.
That's what's up. That's dope. I really hope I hope I said something that sticks with someone. But I appreciate you guys for listening, and thanks for having me on here, Matt. And Yeah, it was fun.
Definitely. All right, fellas. I'll see y'all later.